Hi teachers, this is going to be a video about blended learning, the advantages of it, and then how you can use blended learning in your own classroom. So what is blended learning? Blended learning is a learning environment that reaps the benefits of both having a face-to-face classroom and then an online learning environment. So you're using technology and you're also using face-to-face learning together, but it's not just including technology in your classroom. So it's not saying that, oh, I have Chromebooks or iPads in my classroom, so I have a blended learning environment. It's being able to use those together, like in conjunction, so that you're reaping the benefits of both and you're not just focusing on face to face and you're not just focusing on the technology aspect of your classroom. So, how is it useful? It's useful in a lot of different ways. One of the best ways, though, is with differentiation. So, students are able to get an education that meets their needs. So, let's say you have a reading assignment, you could push out a reading assignment that meets your readers' needs that are at a fifth grade reading level, or maybe you have some ELL students that can only read at a second grade reading level. You can push out the same sort of article to them, but at a reading level that meets their needs. Then there's less wasted materials and printing, so that means more time for teachers to work on other things that they need to do, because I'm pretty sure all of us have wasted print materials at some point because we just never got around to using them. Thankfully, with using technology in the classroom, you don't have to worry about this waste because it just means that you didn't get to use a website maybe or something like that instead of wasting print materials. Again, the personalized content is great, especially with students who want to maybe work on a extra like Genius Hour project, and they would be able to work on something that meets their needs and like what they're interested in. And then another student can work on something that they are interested in. So it allows students to work on projects that interest them, and teachers have an easier time of monitoring their content and then also personalizing that. For classroom management, there's LMSs, which are learning management systems like Google Classroom and Schoology and Edmodo that will give you a place where you can grade papers, collect assignments, you can give students feedback, push out assignments or give directions. And even if you have to be absent for a day, you can still push out assignments or collaborate with students as well. Then for collaboration, students can not only collaborate face-to-face, but they can also collaborate online. So if you have this blended learning environment, maybe you have students discussing a novel discussion post online, and then you might have a center later on where students will collaborate on a project together for that very same novel. So you have a lot of different ways that they can work together with this learning environment. So then why blended learning? Well, I want you to think about one of your favorite units that you teach. So when I think of this, I think of my lunch money unit that I teach for the first quarter of fifth grade. And I think about, okay, I could have just print materials in my classroom. And while that is a good unit, when I use this blended learning environment instead, it becomes a much more collaborative experience. And I have ways for students to work together. They can find more materials. I can personalize their contents and differentiate their content that they're getting a little bit more. And it's all around a much more effective approach than just using a face-to-face classroom. The idea of blended learning is that you're trying to get the benefits of both. You're not of face-to-face and technology. You're trying to get the benefits of both of that, not just one. So then there's a couple of models for blended learning. I'm going to be talking about some of the more popular ones. So the first one that I have here is the flex model. So in the flex model, this is kind of similar to a call center. So there'll be maybe students in the middle with their laptops, their Chromebooks, their iPads, and they're going to be spending most of their time on this computer. But then there's going to be breakout rooms, which will be on the side, which will then give that face-to-face instruction. So then interventionists can maybe pull out students. So if there's like reading intervention or somebody needs ELL support or you need special education, they can get that time in as well. So students can still get that extra time. on the side with teachers, but then most of the time is going to be spent on the computer with maybe a couple of guides going through the computer area, helping students with any questions they might have. You might see this at like a high school level with the advanced content, so students are kind of given that freedom to work on their own and then having that intervention when necessary. The a la carte method is a supplemental learning model, or type of blended learning. So a student might be learning at their high school or at their middle school or at their elementary school about a certain subject or topic. And then at home, they can take a completely online course and enrich what they're already learning about at school. You might see this at tutoring centers, and usually there are a variety of quote unquote teachers. And what I mean by this is that there might be a teacher that teaches the classroom, but there will also be experts that come in and will help students with discussions or teach them about the topic of the week. And there's a lot of networking that will go on, so students can learn from others through like LinkedIn, and we'll get to meet different like experts in the field to kind of enrich the experience that they are already receiving at school. Then for the class rotation model, you'll see this one a lot in the elementary level. And what this is that there's going to be a lot of stations that students will be moving between. And this allows teachers to easily monitor and manage what their students are doing, because those teachers can set up these stations, and as students are moving around it, teachers can see like what progress that they're making, how students are working. Teachers can easily differentiate in between these stations, especially with the use of technology. For my own classroom, I actually use this model a lot, this class rotation blended learning environments. And instead of having stations where students are working at a set time, so 20 minutes at one station, 20 minutes at the next, I give them the stations that they will be having to go through, and it's more like a checklist. So I say, okay, you have to work on this station, and then once you finish it, you can move on to the next one. So students can then pace themselves a little bit easier so they don't feel rushed through just having to hurry up and finish everything in a 20-minute session. And I found this to be really effective. And then throughout this, what I'll do is I can pull students aside and then work with them. So kind of familiar to the flex model. So I can pull students aside, maybe do a reading group or a math group with them. And the great thing about the class rotation model is that there's a lot of modalities. So maybe one station will have a pen and paper assignments. The next might have a Chromebook assignments where students might be working on vocabulary or Freckle. And then there could be another station that is involving students working on like a group project together. And like I said, this one is very familiar to elementary level teachers, as we use this pretty often. Then some tips for success. So if you're interested in using this blended learning environment in your own classroom, these are some great tips to kind of help you out and get you started. So the first one that I think is the most important is to give students feedback on their assignments. So if students aren't going to be seeing you as much, like in an a la carte method or in a flex model, you want to make sure that you're still giving them feedback on their assignments, because they're not going to have as much face-to-face time with you. So getting that feedback for them is important because they would like to know how they're doing, and it helps them kind of stay connected to the classroom overall. Then to make sure that you're not completely forgoing that face-to-face element. So in blended learning, it could, easily you could just keep pushing technology resources out to your students and have them working on that. But you remember that blended learning is still about reaping the benefits of face-to-face instruction. So you still want to have that in your classroom as well. You don't want them just staring at a computer screen for 6 hours and then going home. You still want them to collaborate along with you as well. Then allowing collaboration among your students, so giving them that time to work face-to-face with each other, face-to-face with you, working on group projects. So again, you don't want them simply just staring at a computer screen for 6 hours. You also want them to be able to talk to each other. Discussion posts in online learning environments like LMSs can also be a great way to get them to start talking to each other if they are shy, talking to each other in class. And then for LMSs, so that would be like Google Classroom, Schoology, Edmodo. There's a lot of other LMS systems that you can use. These are a great way to monitor and manage your classroom. So you can upload a class, and then you can, some will let you put grades on there, some will let you talk with parents or give feedback to students. You can grade assignments, and you can also maybe put up schedules for your classrooms as well. So they're a great way to monitor your classroom, and it also gives your students a place where they can find all the information that they need for your class. And then last but not least, you can reach out for support and for resources. There are a lot of people at our school that are willing to help you out. And the great part about blended learning is that some teachers might have the traditional learning aspect, the face-to-face, down pat, so they can give you tons of resources for that end of it. And then there's other teachers that are really great with the technology side of everything, and they can kind of help you out. So that blend of those different types of resources will really make your classroom effective and fun and give your students a variety of experiences in your classroom. So let's take a look at a unit that could be changed. So this is one of the units that I do in my own classroom. It's our second quarter immigration units. And we start off by reading The Circuits, which is a novel all about immigration. So we read that novel. We might read some print articles about different students that have been immigrants or something like that, or just different stories over time. We might analyze some printed out data like statistics of immigrants coming into the country over like the past 100 years. Maybe we'll do some research from books and different print articles on specific groups of immigrants and why they came over. Maybe students would write like an essay on that or create a presentation. So it's just your traditional unit that probably most of us have seen over the years. But then in a blended learning environment, this gets a little bit different. So those same print articles that the students were reading in class could now be differentiated. So maybe I would have an article on Freckle all about immigration, and my students that are very high readers, maybe they could be reading it at a 7th grade level, and my students that have some difficulty reading, maybe they could read it at a 3rd grade level. They're still getting the same information. It's just maybe the wording has been changed, or maybe there's not as many details, and it might just be a little bit easier to read, or maybe they just get advanced vocabulary in like a 7th grade level article, but still the content is the same. Then for reading that novel in class, like The Circuit, we could read the novel in class, and then maybe we can discuss the novel online. So maybe in Google Classroom, I would have my students finish reading chapter 1, and then afterwards discuss that chapter online on Google Classroom. And I have a lot of students that are very shy, but once you get them on a computer, they feel a little bit easier talking to students. So that might be a great way of starting those discussions in class and working on those typing skills too. Then for analyzing data from various sources, you can go online and you can find different types of data. So maybe I'd have one group of students find out about one immigrant group that have come over from a country and find data on them. And then just analyzing data from a lot of different areas and not just one set of data that I've printed out. Then students can research and create a presentation. So well, books, they can get books and articles in a traditional method, but then once they're online, we can talk about finding those credible resources and then going out and finding that research, looking at different places. They can still, of course, get the research from books and articles, but the internet will kind of open up and let them find more things. And then they can create a presentation on like Google Slides. Maybe they can create a blog or a Kaggle to show off all the research that they found. There are web quests that they can do. Scholastic has a really cool website all about immigration, and they can go on that website and they can read about all the different stops that they would make at Ellis Island. So they could listen to videos and they can listen to audio recordings. So it kind of enriches that experience more than just a traditional method would. And then you can also take virtual field trips, which I think are really cool. The Scholastic website has a virtual field trip that the kids could take to Ellis Island. And again, this is just for immigration units, but these resources are available to many other units that you could possibly do in your classroom. And of course, teachers would be more than willing to help you out finding these resources to mix the face-to-face and the blended learning elements of the classroom, or technology aspects of the classroom. So then some resources that could help you out. So we have Google Classroom, Edmodo, and Schoology, which are all part of learning management systems. You just have to find the one that best fits your needs and your classroom's needs. I know our school usually will use Google Classroom, and there's a lot of applications that work with Google Classroom. So I would say this is probably the most user-friendly as of right now. Then if you need differentiated materials, Zearn is great for math as it goes along with our math content. Freckle is great because it has math, reading, science, and social studies, and it differentiates all of those subjects for the kids, and you can easily monitor their progress in standards as well for the Common Core state standards. And then CommonLit is a great website that lets you differentiate their reading instruction, and it gives them a lot of standards-based questions that they can work on, and you can also easily track that. Scholastic has a lot of great resources that will like the WebQuest will be on there, or they might have some great lesson plans for teachers and how to incorporate technology with print resources as well. And a new website that I recently found is this Legends of Learning, and this is a website that blends science instruction with games. So what I'll do is I'll teach a science lesson in class, and then there will be games on like the properties of matter, and students can play a game based on that in class. And the kids have a lot of fun with it, and teachers can easily track what the kids are doing in that website as they're playing through it. So these are just some great resources for a blended learning environment. Of course, there's many more. And if you ever have any questions, you can always come to me and ask for additional resources, or to your other colleagues, as the teachers have a wealth of knowledge and a lot of different resources, whether that's face-to-face or the technology. I hope this is really helpful, and thank you for watching my presentation on blended learning.